A chock-full weekend visit to the Great Salt Desert about to draw to a close here at Utah Motorsports Campus. Final event of this Pirelli World Challenge Grand Prix at Utah Motorsports Campus, presented by EnergySolutions, about to unfold. It is round 4 of the new SprintX Championship in its development season. 6 rounds total. This is the middle event featuring the doubleheader, and we are about ready to go racing for the second of those 2 races this weekend. I'm Greg Creamer, joined by Calvin Fish. Jeff Lepper will be down in what will become a unusually busy pit lane for the Pirelli World Challenge. If you haven't tuned in and watched these SprintX races with us this season, as we do have, Cal, a mandatory pit stop and driver change.
Yes, there is, Greg. Everyone has to pass the flag that will be displayed at the 25-minute mark of this 60-minute event. But then, any time after that, you've got to be in pit lane by the 35-minute mark at pit entrance. So it's a relatively small window. There's some strategy to play there. If you've got one driver who's a little bit quicker than the other, obviously try and maximize their drive time, minimize the slower guy. But again, it really depends on how the car's working, if you need to make a change and things like that. But we certainly saw a sensational battle that went right down to the very last lap when Michael Lewis caught and passed Kuno Whitmer to take victory yesterday for he and Preston Calvert.
And boy, did they need that after what happened to them with that fire in the 77 car. Looking like that car's done for the year. It just sort of rejuvenated them, got them back into it, and it was an absolutely fabulous outcome. And once again, we just want to point out, we know, obviously, we don't have a huge entry in this, and the reason is because in this sort of beta development season, we're just trying to work the format out and get it ready for a serious application next year. And the only time really to do this is in the middle sometimes of all these races. The first round coming up yesterday in the middle of a championship weekend late in the year. Not a surprise that some of the teams that would have liked to have entered said, we can't risk cars, we're going after championships, and so just not a big entry here. We did get one added to this one, though. The guys, the teenage gang from the Team Your Promotion Motorsports are going to enter in the Janetta. That's exciting.
It really is. 2 really good young drivers. Parker Chase will start the event. Harry Gottsacker will do the second stint. So they're one of those lucky groups that actually have pretty equal speed between their 2 drivers, so they can be very flexible with their strategy in terms of when they make that call for that pit stop. But they're going to have to go and chase those TRG boys. They've gone 3 for 3 so far in SprintX in GTS side of things.
Yeah, they've been pretty stout, haven't they? And when one of them has a little issue, like the 07 of Max Riddle and Chris Wilson did, I'll tell you, Jason Alexandridis, I think, had his best drive of the season in that race yesterday.
He was fabulous. He really hung on to his teammate very, very well there in the opening going, and set up a perfect run for Derek DeBoer to bring it home. And he's following up on a victory that he had in the GTS class back at Road America just last month. So, and Max Riddle was very fast today at the end of the race in GTS. So he and Chris Wilson, with that car healthy, they could definitely be a factor for victory.
And one of the interesting dynamics here is the starting driver in yesterday's race will be the finishing driver today. The finishing driver yesterday has to start, so it kind of flip-flops things, just throws a little more of an interesting wrinkle into this thing. And actually in one of the cars, and that's the number 23 Audi, we're going to see a driver change as well. Yesterday it was Walt Bolden running with David Estella. Today David Estella will be turning over to very quick Dion von Molke. I think that's going to be an interesting pairing.
Oh, they're going to be really stout. They're going to have a really strong run here today. And then you got the flip side of things, someone like David Askew, who's going to be starting the car that was on the pole here yesterday. And they got James Burke, who put the car on the pole. He's going to be finishing. So again, you know, it depends on, we're not typically going to see yellows, but if there should be and it gets stacked back up and then you put the faster driver in, who knows what can happen there. That can really turn the tide.
They've got an opportunity there. And that car, by the way, the Audi that had the issue in yesterday's race from pole, led all the way to the pit stop, and then they couldn't get it restarted. And we were kind of wondering, well, why would you turn the engine off? Because you don't have to for that change. And they said, yeah, we did, because the temperatures were soaring so high. To have the engine just idling there, it was going to spike the temps. And they said eventually it just shut it down. It wouldn't restart anyway from the heat sink.
And there's a minimum time you have to be there. Even if you're very quick with your driver change, it's basically 60 seconds is allowed there. So they add 25 seconds for the pit lane delta. So it's a total of 85 seconds from pit in with your first driver to pit out for your second driver. You've got to meet that. You can't be underneath that number. So it's not like you can do it really fast. Let's get the driver in quickly and get the car moving, get some air to the engine.
Had to do that, and it just didn't quite work out for them. But now let's get down to the front of the grid for the command to get this 4th round underway. Jeff?
That's right, SprintX here at Utah Motorsports Campus, presented by EnergySolutions, and to give that command, it's Horacio Mastracio's Pirelli Tire North America's Motorsports Marketing Manager.
From our partners, EnergySolutions optimal batteries, and Pirelli tire. Drivers, start your engines.
Well, he's been about as busy as any driver or crew guy is. That's about the fifth command he's given this weekend. Thanks, Orazio. We sure appreciate it. And we are getting ready to go. This is a rolling start, so of course you'll have that VP Racing Fuels acceleration zone, which begins in that last S of corners, wind up and release. So they'll be dealing with that. And there is a look at Mike Lewis. Boy, what an eventful weekend it has been for him, of course. At the start of yesterday's race, had that problem, ended up parked in the middle of turn 1 for the GT race. Comes back, gets going, fast lap for pole. Just phenomenal.
And a strong run here today, just off the podium, finished in the 4th position. So speaking of Preston Calvert, he was very proud of the fact that his Calvert Dynamics group are going to have 2 pole positions here today for GT and for SprintX. So that's a very stout message from that team.
Absolutely. And then that great run in the race for this category, SprintX yesterday, when he ran down that car, 4th on your screen, that Mike Mills and Kuno Whitmer driven BMW to be able to take the win. And for that car, Cal, it was just that they were thinking there was something wrong mechanically with the car, and it turns out it was maybe not.
They really looked through it with a fine-tooth comb last night, couldn't find anything wrong, and it just came down to that right front tire that they threw at the car, just upset the balance. Just spoke to Kuno Whitmer just a few minutes ago before he jumped in the car, and he said, I went out in the warm-up on scrub tires, immediately in the 49s, and the car feels great. So he's pretty bullish, he's pretty confident about what he can do here in this opening stint. But let's not count out James Safronis. I mean, he laid down the 2nd fastest lap here yesterday. He's on the front row alongside Michael Lewis. So those two Porsches could have a real keen battle here at the start of this race.
That was pretty fun. I said to James at the end of the race yesterday when I saw him, I said, "Atta boy, way to go." And he goes, "I'm not sure what that's for." And I said, "2nd quick lap." And he went, "Oh, that's right. That's for qualifying, isn't it?" He didn't quite realize it. Suddenly, he had a lot more bounce in his step. And I think we're going to see a fun show from him. And, of course, he'll be turning over to Brent Holden, who every time he's on the track, this season he's running the Porsche for the first time after years in the Audi. It's got a very different feel. Every time he's out, Cal, he says it feels more and more comfortable, more and more familiar, predictable.
Yeah, and you could see that the confidence he's having in the car as he was driving yesterday, put in another really good run, as he did in the opening rounds at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park.
And there you see right at the back of the queue that beautiful little Ginetta that runs in the GTS category now as a GT4 entrant in that. And you've got Parker Chase driving the car that his teammate Harry Gottsacker normally runs in that field.
Yeah, I think those two guys should have some fun. I think that's what the format this year is all about. Maybe some of the teams that are still in the paddock just suddenly throw an entry in there like these guys have done.
Working their way down through what is called the attitudes here, setting up on this one. And that means we're getting near the end of the lap. Welcome back, everybody. Lights out in the pace car. We are ready to go racing round 4, SprintX, here at the Pirelli World Challenge Grand Prix at Utah Motorsports Campus, presented by EnergySolutions. A great high shot showing that VP Racing Fuels acceleration zone, those last 2 corners, and Cal lining up onto the straight. Great formation here. Watch for the green flag, and we are racing, and it looks like Lewis getting the jump from the inside on that beautiful Porsche of James Safronis.
That's the perfect start there by Michael Lewis. James Safronis goes with him, but you know Kuno's going to be really aggressive down here into turn 1. Look for that BMW now on the outside. He slices to the inside, just over the nose of that Audi.
Boy, I thought he was going to thread the needle and squeeze it in underneath Safronis. Couldn't quite get it done, but a beautiful move by Kuno Whitmer. But already up front, Lewis, 2, 3, 4 car lengths.
Yeah, very impressive start here, but James had a really steady run here yesterday, laying down that 2nd fastest lap. Michael's obviously coming off. He's had track time here today, just finished the race about 90 minutes ago in the 4th position. So he knows the car, he knows the track, he knows the conditions, and everyone else has got to try and find their rhythm quickly as he disappears a little bit.
And Kuno Whitmer attacking already on James Safronis, and then Ostella in that M1 GT Audi sitting right behind us here. So, of course, there were some of the teams, both in GT and in the GTS category here. Let's check in with Jeff Lepper about what happened and what may have been done for those cars. Jeff?
Well, Kuno Whitmer's BMW, they changed the right front tire yesterday, and that really affected the handling and balance on that car. Ultimately, they finished in second place. The same for Max Riddle and Chris Wilson from the Racers Group Aston Martin. They didn't know what happened. They finally found a slightly bent toe link on the front of that Aston Martin. They got it fixed. And Harry Gottsecker, Parker Chase making their debut in SprintX with that Performance Racing Group Ginetta. It's a little bit of strategy here as Harry Gottsecker, because of an incident in the sprint race, is on probation. So they're going to do the race here being on probation, so he won't be on probation come Sonoma and Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca.
So, taking advantage of opportunity, and plus, Cal, that's just additional track time. And for these young guns, I mean, they're 15 years old, and I'll tell you what, it's just track time in these Ginettas. That's exactly what they needed anyway.
When we talk about strategy, there's strategy there in terms of being on probation and getting it knocked out. I like the way they're thinking.
Absolutely, and of course, there you look at the GTS category. Scott Heckert leading in that red Sin R1 GT4 machine, one of the prettier cars you're ever going to see racing out there, that prototypical-looking machine. And then yesterday's GTS winner, now in the hands of the always quick Derek DeBoer, slots into second.
Yeah, Chris Wilson fading there a little bit. We thought that car would be quick. It was very quick at the end of the race just a few hours ago with Max Riddle, but he looked to be looking for air immediately there, going to the middle of the road.
Well, it is toasty out there as well, and one of the things Chris is very, very aware of, he's got great racecraft, and you almost wonder if he's also thinking, you know what, this pace here, a little bit too early to go hard on these tires. But look at this, not really the case for Parker Chase. He's racy.
Yeah, he's a fine young talent, as is Harry Gottsacker, his teammate, so they're going to try and dig deep here, see if they can make an impression on their debut in SprintX. But look at this. Michael Lewis has taken off a little bit, but certainly Kuno was trying to get around James Safronis.
And I think Kuno, his concern here watching Lewis get away is that he wants to not have him get too far out, so that when they do the driver change and the like, his co-driver doesn't have to try and run too hard and chase down somebody.
Absolutely. I mean, Preston Carver's been doing a nice job here this weekend. He will co-drive with Michael Lewis in that number 98 machine that leads. And you talked about David Ostella. He's hanging in there tough as well. So if he turns it over with Dion Van Malka finishing, who knows what can happen.
And by rule, it's kind of interesting how they have to put together the driver pairings. It's based on the FIA driver rankings, where platinum is the quote-unquote fastest driver, gold, then the amateur driver category, as Parker Chase ramping around the outside of Chris Wilson.
Well, that was a nice move there.
Wasn't it?
Good racing we're looking at. Talked about a relatively small field, but we've seen some sensational racing over the first 3 rounds of the championships, and it continues today.
That's one of the things, this is now our 4th race, and because of what I explained earlier about how we have to schedule these in the middle of weekends, and it's people in championships just aren't going to risk the cars, we haven't had big entries, but we've had great racing, and the paddock generally seems to be pretty excited about this. But look at this move.
There's the move, up and over the curb. Chris gives him a little bit of room. It was clean.
It was clean. Chris kind of looked down the inside again, but just didn't have the response he needed. But look at this. Derek DeBoer, after Heckert had gone out to a little bit of a lead here, Cal, Derek DeBoer has trimmed that back a bit.
He does. He was half second quicker on that last lap. That's why it's now down just over a second, and maybe under that now as we look at the margin on the racetrack.
But just get back to what I was talking about with the driver ranking. When you look at the FIA rankings, platinum is the top category pro driver, then gold, then you move into the amateur category. The better one's the silver. It's not just necessarily better in terms of speed, it's more experience, really. And then bronze, and there's a relationship with the pairings. For instance, a platinum guy, you can only run him with a bronze, so you don't have people running away with it here, but you get the right pairing of some very quick, say, silver drivers, it can work.
It really can. It can be a definite advantage, and if they're equally paced as well, as we mentioned before, gives you great flexibility with your strategy in terms of how quickly you have to get the slower driver out.
And the interesting dynamic here, when we talk about normal World Challenge sprint racing, one driver, you spend all your practice and qualifying time dialing that car up for how that driver likes it to feel and drive. Here, the other part of the matchmaking, if you will, is you'd like to get 2 drivers in the car that like a relatively close setup, yes?
Absolutely. It's not really a true endurance format in terms of it's a 1-hour show, do you know what I mean? But in terms of that compromise, that very much does get you into endurance mode in terms of there's no point in having a car that's bullet quick for one driver, yet the other one's going to struggle and potentially fall off the road if it's too loose, for example. So see here, Kuno Whitmer starting to put the pressure on James Safronis. Michael Lewis, a nice lead so far. His fastest lap, almost 2 seconds quicker than the rest of the field. So he is really dominant right now. I thought James would be able to hang with him, and I think Kuno's probably getting a little frustrated here.
And the problem for Kuno is one of the things we're seeing with these GT3 level cars, they are so dependent on the aerodynamics and the air flowing across those cars to generate that stick. You get up behind somebody like Kuno is trying to get around James, you lose that air on the nose, it can start to damage the tires.
It can. It's not just going to ruin your lap time or your potential to get by, but also if you continue to run and you keep fighting the understeer imbalance in the car, it's going to have an effect over the long run as well. Even once you clear them, you're not going to have such a sharp edge to those tires in terms of performance, that is.
David Estella staying right with these two, running similar laps to Sofronis, so a good job there. And remember, James Sofronis here, I believe, if my math is correct, and I know I say it all the time, that's always sketchy, but I think this is his 194th start in Pirelli World Challenge competition. Vastly experienced driver and always quick.
He really is. He's a great asset to our championship. He's always been a front runner. He's not running on a full-time basis now as his business and family commitments have certainly ramped up over the last few years. But when he does return, as you can see today, putting in a nice performance right now.
And behind him, you have one of the better drivers on the planet. Here's Kuno Wittmer, a factory driver for BMW. A couple of years ago, won the GT Le Mans championship in that ultra-competitive level of GT racing. Great to have him in this championship.
Oh, it's fantastic, and he's always fired up every time he shows up at a racetrack. He wants to go out there and get the job done. So, a little surprised here. There he tries to make a move. He's a bit too far back because right now these two guys are running laps in the 151 range. The fastest lap of both of those has been Sofronis 151.6, Kuno a 151.5, Estella 151.3, and you look at Lewis in the mid-49s and continues to run there. So Kuno said, I ran a 49 immediately in the warm-up this morning. So again, it seems like the balance is a little bit off, or he's just being stymied by Sofronis being right in front of him.
As we watch what's unfolding in the GTS division here, you see a great drive by Scott Heckard, and he is one quick talent, and he's got a co-driver that I'm sure Jeff is antsy to get on board.
It really is. Chris Buffet, a little probably antsy, like Greg Creamer says, to get on board, but great results so far this weekend from the entire Sin Racers Edge team.
Yes, I think if you look at how Scott did in the GTS race, how this race is going so far, what I'm looking forward to is getting in and trying to maintain, hopefully, the gap or just stay ahead or wherever he keeps the car when we finish there.
And what's the strategy? How long is it going to be split 50-50, or you try to get right to that 35-minute mark?
I think we're looking around the 50-50 point. As part of this race is for me to get some experience out there racing as well, so it'll give us that opportunity. But obviously, we'll play that a little bit, just depending on where the gap is at that time.
Well, great results so far for Racers Edge Motorsports. Looking to continue that here in SprintX.
Absolutely. It's Scott Heckard doing the job right now. That lead up to over a second once again. Derek DeBoer had trimmed it down, but it looks like a response. Oh, and Wittmer has been able to sneak through on James Sofronis. We're going to have a look at it here, show you how it happened, Cal.
Here we go. Down into the Black Rock hairpin. Had to take it in really deep. There wasn't a lot of room there. James knew he was coming. Didn't give him much of a window, but Kuno had to make it happen. Now on this next lap, not this one, because obviously that was traffic affected. We'll have to see what sort of pace Kuno has in comparison with Michael Lewis, who's now stretched that lead up to just over 9 seconds.
But you can see, though, that Sofronis was entertaining the over-under here. He turned hard to the left there, thinking if I could just get some throttle here. But the problem was he also had to be mindful because Estella was really looking to jump on that opportunity as well. But, boy, fairly quickly here, now that he's in clean air, Kuno Wittmer able to open that margin up.
Again, it all goes back to yesterday. They didn't get the result they were looking for, a runner-up finish, haven't had the lead for most of the race, losing on the final lap of the race. So they had performance issues there, and that then affected their fast lap performance, which put him further back on the grid, is affected today.
Exactly.
And it's a carryover.
Yeah, it's a domino effect here when things happen in these races where how you your fast lap in that first race settles the things in the second race as well. There is a definite domino effect sometime. And right now, Kuno he has to get after it here. That lead was up to, as you said, over 9 seconds. Let's see what he can do with it at this stage. And Heckert maintains that lead in GTS. About a second.
Chase is coming hard after Derek DeBoer, though. Fastest lap of the race at 1:59.3 in the GTS-X division, compared to 2-minute flats for the two leaders, Heckert and DeBoer.
And let's see. This is David Estella here that is on board. And we expect to see him turning over to a very, very quick driver, Dion Von Molke, who's standing by with Jeff.
We're trying to get the suit on, got to make it look good for TV, but a unique format here with M1 GT this weekend. 3 drivers. Now, you've had any time in the car this weekend, or you're just jumping right in cold?
Yeah, I had about 10 laps or maybe 10 minutes the first day on Thursday, and then I had this morning warm-up, so got to feel out the car a little bit. Our Audi R8 LMS by M1 GT Racing is really strong, so David Ostella's out there doing a good job right now. Hopefully we can keep close, and then I can try to move forward in my stint here.
Now, moving forward with this team and this car, going to try to see you at Mazda Race with Laguna Seca?
Yeah, I think so. We're definitely working towards that. We, as a team, would like to win the team championship here at SprintX. So not many cars, but really good competition here. So it's a really cool format here for Pirelli World Challenge, and I think next year it's going to be a really strong series. So to try and win the inaugural one will be something special.
And we ask about strategy all race long. What is it your so far for today? Tire, when you're going to come in between that 25 and 35 minute mark?
Yeah, you know, David's really quick, so I think we're going to try to split it right down the middle. A lot depends kind of how the tires are holding up and how we're looking versus other drivers. But I think our overall average between the two of us is really close, closer than anybody else here, so hopefully that'll play into our advantage.
Well, we'll see if they have an advantage, too, with 3 drivers this weekend.
Thanks very much, Jeff. And if there's anybody on this planet regarding an Audi who could get into it without a whole lot of track time at a specific event, it'd be Dion. He's a brand ambassador for Audi customer racing.
Yeah, he knows this car like the back of his hand, so yes, he only got a few minutes in the car, but that's not going to affect his speed in any way. But look at this battle up front in GTS. Hecker continues to lead. Derek doing a great job. Derek DeBoer in the TRG Aston Martin Racing Vantage. Parker Chase is literally on the chase right now.
That's what I was wondering, because Derek had dropped off again to about a second back, and you had been watching and saw that Parker was coming after him. I wonder if Derek said, well, I just better get after it here and try and get a buffer here.
Well, they know that Parker Chase's teammate is kind of equal pace in terms of Harry Gottsacker, so this is going to be a fierce battle here this afternoon for honors in the GTS class.
That's through the corner called Knockout, as you see that sign indicating here, now into Witchcraft. Very, very quick entry, snugs up a little bit, and then you want to try and get it over to the right a little bit, don't you, to set up for the attitudes.
Yeah, it's all about rhythm here, and if you get half a step off and with the quick sequence of corners, suddenly it just gets you way out of whack when you finish them off. So you got to try and correct that. If you make a little bobble and you get in too deep, try and affect it early. Don't just keep riding out, otherwise the guys will take advantage. Look at that, Parker Chase really loose there coming off a Tuala corner. He's got to run on Derek DeBoer. It's tough to pass here, though, into Clubhouse.
I guess that's fast loose, wasn't it? He just carried a huge chunk of speed at the exit of that turn. Now into our VP Racing Fuels acceleration zone for the restarts. That's wind up. This is release.
See the different lines there. Derek DeBoer definitely try to square this corner off. Be able to straighten the hands coming out with that later turn-in point.
By the way, Whitmer immediately down to the low 150s, turned to 150.1. Hasn't cracked that 149 mark yet, though, as we continue to watch this battle. And Derek DeBoer pops to the inside. One thing you know about Derek, if you watched his GTS race at Road America, the man is a demon on the brakes.
He really is. He can really pile it in there, and that was a very impressive move on Scott Hecker, who's been brilliantly quick here this weekend.
Parker Chase now wants to see if he can get up and do anything with Scott Heckard at this point. Parker, it just looks like that car's flat sliding a little bit even, doesn't it?
It does. He got really close to them, and he hasn't been able to cut into that margin at this point of the game. I think Derek, as you said, saw that Parker was coming, had to try and make some moves, and he seems to do it on the brakes. You said at Road America, he's just demonic in terms of his moves there.
The interesting thing, for that number 29 Ginetta in the GTS race that was held earlier today, it certainly appeared like that car was a little bit biased too much to the rear in terms of the brake, and Harry was struggling with it just a little bit. They seem to have been able to dial that out.
Yeah, and let's not forget Parker Chase is not running his car. He's in a Ginetta, but it's Gottsacker's car, so he's probably not totally at home with it. Slightly different balance. What we did notice with Harry Gottsacker was he really tried to get hard on the brakes. That was when he was losing the rear end, had 2 quick spins, and ultimately the contacts will put him on probation here for the race today.
I think Parker just tried something there to see what kind of exit he could get out of the attitudes. He grabbed a lot more of that monster curve in the right-hand part of the attitudes there, and then climbed the curb at the exit down to the inside, and he ran quickly up onto the back of Heckard. wonder if he might be keeping that in his back pocket here to maybe use it in a lap or two and make that pass.
It's quite possible. We see Chris Wilson sort of faded from this lead group a little bit. I thought Chris would be right on top of these guys. Every time he drives for TRG, he seems to bring home a victory. He and Max Riddle won the first 2 rounds of the championship at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park.
Well, you know, they've been fighting that problem. They couldn't figure out what it was. They finally found the broken toe leak, but that whole time then they lost setup information. I wonder if they've got it fixed, but now the setup's just not where they need it.
Well, it's possible, but Riddle was so quick at the end of the GTS race, I thought they'd found a good fix, but you never know. Maybe they made some further changes for the race today and they're not quite working.
And here's the battle right now for third in the GT overall category, if you will. Safronis hanging on to it. Estella is right there, but he just as yet has not been able to figure out a way through. But Kuno Whitmer, even though he's been running significantly quickly and drawn away to the tune of some 8 seconds now, back to this battle for Safronis and Estella, he hasn't been able to do anything with that margin Lewis has put up.
Lewis is really quick here this weekend, as evidenced by his pole position for the GT race earlier today. His fast lap 49.7. He just ran another 49-second lap just under the 50-second bracket, 149.987. Kuno's 50.642 on that lap. So Michael actually gapped him by 7/10 on that one lap alone.
And in a way, you might be wondering, well, with Michael Lewis in the field, the pole sitter, 2-time winner, and pole sitter, 3-time pole winner in the GT category, isn't that kind of a ringer in this category? Well, he wasn't originally entered. Preston Calvert was going to be running with Andrew Davis, who was another awfully talented driver, but they had that huge fire in that 77 car, and Michael Lewis and Preston, who's runs for that team, Michael said, well, let's get you in this, let's go race.
Yeah, I think you could stack the deck. I mean, certainly Michael Mills has by bringing Kuno in.
Absolutely.
He runs for the Rahal team and BMW North American entry. Here we go. This is not in terms of the pit window. There's a problem here for Heckert. You got to be 25 minutes on the board. We're only 18 minutes in right now, so some kind of issue for the Sin, I would believe.
Way too early to be making that stop. So DeBoer now finds himself with a little bit more of a margin, but Heckert has parked the Sin. Jeff, what's the word?
A word from John Meraki here from Racers Edge Motorsports. The car is overheating. They're trying to see if they can blow some air down into those radiator ducts, maybe clear some debris, but really, really hot in the Sin R1 GT4 today.
Well, that is just an issue you have to deal with here. But, I wonder with these GT4 cars, they have to manage the air so much, kind of like the GT3 machines these days for downforce. Do you end up sometimes maybe working that too much, managing it too much, and a little deficit getting into the radiator?
Certainly possible, and the fact that he's running behind Derek for a few laps there was taking the air away from the front inlet. So, and again, they don't want to risk damaging this motor.
Absolutely.
I mean, a lot of these GTS teams do not have huge budgets to work with, so they're going to certainly play it safe if he starts to sneak even outside the operating temperature for the motor.
Yeah, we'll see. They look like they've done cleaning out whatever it may be that has gathered up. And, let's not forget, we've been talking about all the marbles that are on this track. Even the pace car has talked about having to scrub to get the marbles clean. It is so heavy here on the buildup. That could pack into radiators and the like. You may not see it, but it's there.
Absolutely. I'll tell you who's picked up the pace is Chris Wilson. Suddenly in the mid 2-minute range, which he was nowhere near initially. So you can see the margin there is a little bit closer than it was. So Chris's car is coming alive. And we're not sure how much track time he's actually got this weekend. I think the main focus is on Max Riddle, who's running in the 2 GTS rounds, and they've had a few issues. So maybe Chris is just kind of feeling his way in as also.
And as we watch here, Parker Chase trying to stay and maybe close up on Derek DeBoer. We've talked about these 2 wicked quick teenagers and this new Janetta program in GTS. Great to have them here in SprintX, Jeff.
Well, Stuart Robinson, yes, those 2 young guns in the car today making their SprintX debut, but also a little strategy there for Harry.
It's going good. We're excited about it. It'll be a fun event for us. It'll be good because they're both young and it'll be new. They're both doing really good right now, so I think we're P2, and we're excited to put Harry in the car shortly.
Now a little setup to the car here with Michael Simpson coming over and helping you guys out.
Yeah, correct. We had Michael Simpson over from Janetta on Thursday, and he really helped the kids really focus on braking. We were struggling on braking, and they really helped us with car setup and braking. We picked up quite a bit of time, and it was just great to see the kids pick up that much time in setup.
Now Parker doing a good job. Has he ever driven Harry's car?
No, actually. So we decided to do this last minute, and we moved the steering wheel from Parker's car to Harry's car and changed padding. So he's in a different spot right now.
Now, during the driver change with Harry, obviously there's a pit lane delta. Are you going to have any changes to go back for Harry?
No, hopefully we're not, because Parker's a little bigger than Harry. The only thing we'll do is take a back pad out. Hopefully that's it.
Well, the strategy down here, and they're enjoying SprintX so far.
I would think so here with a very, very good run. Parker Chase last time by within 1.1 seconds of Derek DeBoer, and it's a pretty experienced driver you got up there in Derek DeBoer, certainly with the SprintX format. And look at that. As you can see, Parker really able to use all that curve.
He is. The car's working really well. I think Michael Simpson coming over as well as the team member just said there. Really a big benefit, the guys. Just to have that data to look at, realize you can take the car in a lot deeper on the brakes, work with the setup to make sure that the car is underneath them. And certainly Parker Chase, when you look at his fast lap, 1:59.3 continues to be about 3/4 of a second clear of the rest of the GTS field.
There is Michael Lewis completing another lap. It's only been recently he's had some laps that have been in the 150s. This one, though, a 150.8. And we'll have to see what Kuno. Well, Kuner's not going to get bottled up in a little bit of traffic as he's caught the back of Chris Wilson. But watching Michael Lewis take that Circle Porsche Discount Tire Calvert Dynamics and Curb Agajanian machine down into this great sequence of corners here. Sunset Bend is turn 1, 2, and now coming up into turn 3, and that's the margin. A lot of distance between Lewis. There's Derek DeBoer leading in GTS. And then coming up behind there is Kuno Whitmer. That's a huge margin, Cal.
It's huge. It's up right at the 12-second mark right now. And here's a pass. Ostella's finally cleared James Safronis. It's been a great battle here in the first 20 minutes or so of this race.
It really has been. And James doing a great job here, but Estella has been simply relentless.
Yeah, and let's not forget, here it is. Here's the pass down Euro Stop Tech brake zone. James tried to protect there. A little bit reactionary. That may get a little bit of a warning on the radio channels from the driver stewards. They do not like to see you reacting to someone making a move. If you want to take that inside line, do it early. Be proactive, not reactive.
Now we'll see what James can do with Estella in front as a reference, and sometimes you just, can figure something out a little bit and maybe be able to come back at him. And it's interesting, if you've been watching a lot of the Pirelli World Challenge competition here, certainly in the GT ranks, the De Vilbius Racing Audi in that program in the hands of Kyle Marcelli, the older of the Audis in this series, we're seeing that new one run, and it's a very nice package, isn't it?
It really is. Immediately successful on the 24 Hours of the Ring, essentially on debut last year with the new Pro platform. Saw Estella there make a little mistake through the attitudes. It's allowed James Safronis to get a little bit closer, and when you look at the clock, 24 minutes in, we're getting pretty close to seeing that 25-minute flag waved. Should be a green and checkered flag, cross flags at the start-finish stripe, probably on Michael Lewis's next lap.
And let's get down real quick with Jeff, who's with the driver who's going to take over from Michael Lewis in this beautiful 98 Porsche.
Well, Preston Calvert, the Calvert Dynamics Porsche, very emotional win there yesterday. Try to look for the same today, but I notice we're coming up on 25 minutes and you don't even have your gear on yet, so obviously you're right to get as much time with Lewis behind the wheel.
That's right. Yeah, the strategy today is to have Michael take as much time as possible behind the wheel, and then I'll try to bring it home. He's building up a little bit of a gap now for me, and hopefully I can get in the car and make a smooth exchange with him and be able to bring it home. We'll see.
And tell us what this team must have went through. This has been an up and down week, I think, in the pinnacle and the very bottom of motorsports.
Yeah, I think we've you learn a lot about yourself and your teammates when you deal with adversity like this, and we've picked ourselves up by our bootstraps and just decided to carry on, and we have a lot of very resilient and courageous people on the team, and they've shown it this weekend, and very proud of them, very proud of everybody on the team.
We talk about those highs, Cal. It certainly was a high yesterday, but a pretty big low on Friday.
Yeah, they burnt that car essentially to the ground, which is tragic. I mean, I spoke to Preston this morning. He said it's heartbreaking, as was Joe Aquilani. He said it had the same sentiments to have that beautiful race car sitting there, crisped up. And they're going to go to work. They're going to rebuild it. And Joe said to Preston in front of him, he said, I'm going to make it better and faster than it was before. So they're going to dig deep. But they do have this sister car that Michael Lewis has been campaigning. And to take that to victory is amazing. Here's a pass for the lead. Parker Chase, and he just slides it down the inside on Derek DeBoer.
Boy, it's loose, but it is quick loose. It's effective. And now here comes Ostella. He's going to try and motor by both of them. Look at Derek DeBoer. Beautiful read by Derek.
That was sweet. That was sweet. Talk about reading traffic. Typically it's slower traffic. He read the faster traffic there and took the position back.
Now Safrona's going to come down, but what a move by Derek DeBoer reading some traffic. Now, look up here at that start stand and see if we've got that crossed flags. There they are. The white flag furled, of course, and the unfurled, of course, along with the green flag. Every driver, every car has to see that before they can pit. So when the 25-minute mark hits, you can't just duck in. You got to complete that lap, then come around. But let's go back and take a look at what might well be the move of the race. And I'm not talking about Estella's. That was nice, but look at DeBoer's read, Cal.
Look at that. Estella comes down to the inside. Parker Chase wants to give him room, and Derek said, fine, I'll take it too.
Yeah, Parker was a little too perhaps polite there and said, after you. And Derek just squeezed through the door as well. And now that's just going to light the fire in this young teenager here. You know that. But Chris Wilson is seriously closing.
Oh, he's really close dramatically.
Yeah, and I wonder if maybe it was also, like you were talking about, a tire pressure issue, getting it to come right, then the car came alive.
Yeah, maybe a combination of all of those. And with that little dust up that we saw as a 2-second advantage for Chris Wilson there. And obviously Parker Chase and Derek DeBoer were passing and repassing each other, and the GT cars coming through them. So they ran laps in the 2:03 range, Chris Wilson at 2:01. So we got really close within 3 seconds. And this would be great news for Max Riddle when he jumps aboard. So a little bit of dust has been flown across the racetrack there by someone before these guys.
And here comes Chris Wilson, and that really love the livery on that car. Just when you see that in the sunlight at the right angle, all that red is very reflective. They really do it up there at the Racers Group, and that's, of course, the Adobe Road Winery and LaSalle Solutions machine as he heads down into Clubhouse and now into wind up and release.
Be curious to see strategy-wise. There's been some pretty quick drivers starting this race. I think one car that may be hitting pit lane pretty soon would be the number 63. As I say that, in comes Chris Wilson. Okay, Max Riddle has been very fast here this weekend, so a little bit of a strategy play here. We'll have to see how the Delta plays out. And again, it's about 25-second time loss by coming down the pit lane at 35 miles an hour. Then there's a mandatory 60 seconds they want to allow the driver change to be done safely. During that 60 seconds, you can change a tire or more if you choose to do so. So if you've got an imbalance in the car, you may see that happen as Max Riddle just jumps over the wall. Looks like TRG are just doing tire pressures only.
Jeff?
Well, Max Riddle opens the door. Chris Wilson. Now, the Racers Group, a long time endurance racing. They know how to complete these pit stops. Max Riddle, you said it before, he's a little bit quicker here this weekend than his driver coach, the old man, Chris Wilson. But he's buckling the belts right now, getting the water lines hooked up, making sure everything is great. They're cleaning the windows and checking air pressures. They can get this Aston Martin back underway.
Well, and Max has just been getting a lot more time in the car this weekend, obviously, and he's dealt with some of these issues that they've had with the setup and the suspension on the car, and I think that might be part of the reason. And you called it, Cal, the Audi is in.
Yeah, James Burke, who put this car on the pole position in qualifying here, is going to be jumping aboard. 34-year-old Englishman has got a lot of talent. And he's going to be jumping in here. So he's got a big delta to try and make up in terms of the gap between him and the leaders right now. But he's going to be fast, and then we're going to be looking at that gap, I think, kind of winding down. James Burke's going to have to chase down these leaders.
What's happening, Jeff?
Well, that's exactly right there, Cal. David Askew, the idea was to get him out of the car as quickly as possible. He did not even get into this car yesterday as they turned it off, and the car would not refire due to it being vapor locked because of the heat here. So they left the car running, still monitoring those temperatures. They don't want the car to shut off.
That's a smart move, obviously adjusting for the problem here, but boy, that driver change was done, and unless they're doing a tire on the other side of the car, there's an issue, Cal.
Well, no, they've got to wait 60 seconds, remember, so even if the driver change is done quickly, they can't just release him, otherwise it'd be underneath that 85-second mark.
Right, got that stopwatch is what was holding him up there, nothing else. And
we're so used to seeing the guys just shut the door and go.
So, James Burke, who was very fast in this car in the early going of yesterday's race, able to pull out and get in to the rhythm here, you would think, relatively quickly. And, boy, these two guys in this team take the team concept to the absolute end, don't they? Well, I'll get back to that. The Giannetta's in, Jeff.
Well, Parker Chase and Harry Gottsacker coming in for the pit stop. They haven't done this before. Stuart Robinson told me they practiced for about 5 minutes with the 40-minute break between the GTS race and the SprintX race to get this car ready. So they're doing a good job so far. They do have that 1-minute pit delta, but they're trying to hook everything up right now. They forgot to remove the pad from the back of Harry Gottsacker's car, so I'm not sure if he's going to be comfortable in that seat. We'll have to see how it goes.
Oh, that's a big part of pace in a race car is comfort by the driver, but you got to be believing here there's not going to be an issue here, and Harry is just going to go for it. The only thing is they talked about changing the steering wheel. How different is the feel of a steering wheel from one driver to the other?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, everyone has their own little idiosyncrasies in what you want in a race car, so you drive a car with a wheel, so if there's any change there, it can be massive.
Driving the car and up on the wheel is Michael Lewis, as he's ballooned that lead over Whitmer now up to over 16 seconds, Cal. This guy has just been impressive here. And looks like there's the signal. Everything is done. Look like they may have been doing a tire possibly
there's
here.
There's a delay here. This is beyond the 60 seconds, I believe.
They're checking tire pressures, obviously.
Oh, this is going to cost them dearly because they were in a fierce battle with the TRG group. Guess the radio wasn't quite connected, possibly.
It looked like what they were reaching for there.
This seems longer than 60 seconds.
Yeah, no question. And the crew taking an opportunity here just to look at tire pressures, but still not moving. Yeah, something's not right. Furious discussions going on in the pit wall. Meanwhile, Estella comes in and is going to be turning over to Dion von Molke. And we had talked about what a stout pairing this has the potential to be here. And you can see the team just going after those tire pressures here. See no indication that they're necessarily going to change tires, Cal, but they might well be changing pressures in the car as the Ginetta is gone.
Yeah, and that was definitely longer than the pit lane delta. There's something going on there, Greg, as you mentioned. They adjusted the tire pressures and were back inside the cockpit a couple of times. See, this is it. This is what you should be seeing.
Yes.
Driver change done, tire pressures done, looking at the stopwatch, wait for that 60-second mark, and then send him. There you go.
And von Molke, nice and easy, no wheel spin, just forward launch. Exits and on the hammer as he crosses the pit outside and is able to get onto the throttle. So we've got a few of the key stops are done. And here we go. The leader's in, Jeff.
That's right. Michael Lewis brings this car down with a 16-second lead. Right behind him, Michael Mills is on pit lane with Kuno Whitmer, that Mills Racing BMW. So Preston Calvert climbing into this car as Michael Lewis gets out, readjusts the belts for Preston Calvert. They got to hit these pit lane delta with Nick Whitmer and Michael Mills as well. At Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, Mills' team was on it by 0.04 of a second on that pit lane delta. We'll see what the gap is when these cars get back on the track.
They are in too. Whitmer is in, turning it over to Mills. This could be a drag race here out of pit lane. Could tell it, Cal.
They're about 35 to 40 seconds into this pit stop right now, so far so good. Even though the driver change is continuing to happen, they can't afford to waste too much more time. Should be about 15 more seconds on the 98 machine. Otherwise, there's some kind of delay as we're focused right now on the Mills machine.
And you got to believe the Mills machine's not going to change a tire on that car after what happened yesterday here. A little struggle there, though.
60-second markers right now on the 98 car, so they should be moving right now if they've got a good, efficient pit stop. You can just hear them going.
Yep. That seemed just
that was
a couple of ticks long.
That was definitely, they lost 10 seconds right there.
Now, so if the Mills team can get it done, and they are out and on, boy, you're right. They made up a ton of time on that stop.
Yeah, 16 seconds between Michael Lewis and Kuno Whitmer on the lap before they made their pit stops, and it's a lot tighter than that as Michael Mills now goes after and chases Preston Calvert. I mean, you don't want to be so tight. I mean, what Mills did at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park is kind of really close. But
uncomfortably effective.
Yeah, you don't want to be giving up 10 seconds.
And so, it just looked like there may have been a little bit of an issue for Preston Calvert getting in and getting everything hooked up. And Michael Mills, we've seen him. I mean, he's the initial GTA champion in 2014 in Pirelli World Challenge. He's quick.
He is really quick. But let's not forget, it's not game over yet. David Ostella's turned over to Dion van Molke. Got to wait for the timing and scoring and everything to cycle. But certainly the delta, as I said, it was 16 seconds, Lewis to Kuno. And they seem to me to lose about 10 seconds or more on this pit stop exchange. So I expect Michael Mills to be within about 5 seconds or so of Preston Calvert.
See when they complete this lap, and as you pointed out, Sofronis has yet to pit, so when everybody comes through, he should at this point pick up the lead.
Well, he must have been in, otherwise he's going to run afoul of the regulations, because we're 36 minutes into this timed event, so maybe the timing and scoring hasn't cycled yet, Greg. Otherwise, they're outside the window.
Okay, just haven't seen the update yet on the drivers, but yeah, we know that it is Max Riddle now on board this machine. And he has proven this year he's some very quick. Let's check in with Jeff Lepper.
Yeah, not a very good pit stop for Jason Alexandrius and Derek DeBoer. As they came down to pit lane, they completed the driver change. They were checking out the tires and noticed that they wanted to go ahead and replace the right front due to wear. They had pitted too far back, so once the driver change got completed, they had to roll forward, put the car on the air jacks, and then replace that front tire. Very long pit stop for Derek DeBoer and Jason Alexandrius.
It's not TRG-like. I mean, normally you'd be doing that first if you got any issues. But a lot of it is down to what the driver will tell you. I mean, if Derek had been experienced a lot of understeer, he should have been telling the team that to look for the right front tire wear. I've been really driving it hard on that right front. So it's all about communication in this game, because otherwise you would have thought that Kevin and his boys would have been all over it.
Yeah, a bit of a surprise there, but they are back out now. It's just a matter of what deficit they have to an always quick Max Riddle. And up front, almost exactly 4 seconds that time by. Lewis to Whitmer.
Well, it's
now,
actually,
of course,
I think that maybe was confusing us, Greg, because I think Sofronis is probably out of the car.
There it is. Now it shows.
Yeah, so it's taken a while to cycle through. And it's Preston Calvert with a 4-second lead. So, yeah, they basically lost 10, 11 seconds there on that pit stop exchange.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, having a look here, there is that 0-9. Now in the hands of Jason Alexandridis, and he's got some work to do with that issue that Jeff talked about, trying to run down Riddle. And Preston Calvert coming up behind him here. And he's got to be hustling in big time right now because Michael Mills is flying.
Yeah, he's done a pretty good job here. Really impressed with Preston this weekend.
Yeah, he has. Well, it was interesting talking to the team, and I had a nice chat with Andrew Davis, who, of course, is the coach that works with Preston. And he said, it's been interesting. He said, GT Cup car is a very difficult car to drive. And he said Preston was really coming along with his work in that. Then he got behind the wheel of this GT3R, and he said the additional downforce on that car really made it a little bit easier for him to drive. He's gone around Alexandridis, so he's got the buffer now with that one car back to Michael Mills as they come by the line.
Mills took a second and a half out of that lead. That lap is just over 2.5 seconds right now, but just a great job by Preston Calvert. It's going to be tough for him to hang on here and hold off Michael Mills. Then we've got to look for Dion Van Mulker, look for the gap there as Preston just drops a wheel on the exit of one.
Yeah, you can see it. He just got in a little bit too hot. Couldn't get it quite turned to the apex. The thing that's helping him here, Mills now able to get around Alexandridis, but it really cost him all the way through Sunset Bend.
Dion Van Mulker is 19 seconds back and the fastest man on the racetrack right now in the GT class. So let's look at that gap as it continues over the last 20 minutes. Going to be a long haul for Dion to get to the leaders, but we saw what happened yesterday. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I don't think it was a full 19 seconds that he had to make up yesterday, but it was, 16 he closed up. Lewis did in his charge, so it is possible. And we'll see. Also, James Burke is out as well. That was a longish stop for them, too, but it looks like he's back out. We'll see what he's able to do in terms of some lap time and join up on this one, and keeping an eye on what's unfolding here. Alexandridis and Max Riddle and last lap, and of course that included, I think, the stop. Right now, Riddle, it will really open that margin up. It's 35 plus seconds from Riddle back to Alexandridis. We'll see what Alexandridis can do on this lap.
Preston Calvert, I love what he's doing here. Really quick. James Burke in front of him, who was the fastest man in qualifying here this weekend. Not sure if he's got some kind of issue, or whether it was his outlet. Looking at timing and scoring, that was at 2:08. So hopefully there's not some kind of issue for that machine. It's a great group. DXDT, there's a mathematical equation for velocity. Yeah, he's got issues.
Yeah, he does. That lap was a 2:11, and he was on pole yesterday, so something's wrong.
It lost the velocity, Greg.
It did, clearly, and you can see Mills flashing the lights going, hey, bud, just let me slide through here. No, you got an issue. In Mills now, that margin, actually, it was a nice lap by Preston, just a couple of tenths off of Mills' lap. Good run.
Dion's getting closer. It's down to 17 seconds. He's in the third position right now in that number 23 Audi. His lap there was about 1.5 seconds quicker than the leader, Calvert, and just over 1 second quicker than Michael Mills. So I think that's the focus should be. 9-10 laps to go. And he's 17 seconds behind, so he's got to make up almost 2 seconds a lap to be close at the finish.
Meanwhile, Mills continues to try and close down on Preston Calvert. And it's getting breezy out there. You can hear it on the mics that are trackside with the cameras. And when the breeze picks up, Cal, this is desert, tends to pick up some of that salt-infused sand, and it can turn this place into a skating rink.
It really can, and it's inconsistent as well because cars will run through there and clean it off, and suddenly there's a gust of wind, dusts the track once again, and you're the first driver to hit it, so you got to be really on your toes.
Well, and you saw when Preston Calvert went off at the exit of one last time with that breeze, it could blow it right onto the track, and the next guy through suddenly hits that. But clearly Mills has made up another big piece of real estate, Cal.
Well, I think he's got 2 races here today. One is to get the lead from Preston Calvert, then he's got to keep the hammer down and look at the gap. He'll get that on the radio back to Dion Van Moltke because he can't afford to relax once he gets in front. He's got to keep the pace on as we now see James Burke hit pit lane with problems on that Audi.
And the margin now 1.7 seconds, Calvert back to Mills. Yeah, that lap by Mills a good half second quicker than Preston.
But Preston's quickest lap, I believe, that's a 53.7.
Good, yeah.
That's a good one. That's good stuff. I mean, this is an impressive performance by a true sportsman driver in Preston Calvert.
Yeah, he's a real bronze driver, which he's doing a superb job. And the Audi is in, and it is unfortunate. I was going to comment a little while ago during the pit stops. I noticed that team has taken the team idea to its absolute fullest extent. The drivers wearing identical driver outfits and helmets, matching the car.
That's a good point. I did see that when they were doing the driver change, which is rare because typically a driver wants his own identity. But that's a really good group. I think they're going to do great things. It's early days, led by David Pikes. He used to be with James Safronis, Global Motorsports Group team, ran Andrew Palmer back in 2014, and that's the car that Andrew Palmer had so much success with.
Announcers like drivers to have their own characteristics on the helmet too, because it helps us realize who's behind the wheel sometimes.
Dion Van Moltke's charge is actually stalled out a little bit. He basically ran the same lap times as the 2 leaders, so that's not going to get the job done if he's going to catch them.
If he may have caught one of the GTS cars at just the wrong spot.
Yep.
It certainly can happen. Mills continues to draw in on Preston Calvert, but knowing the caliber of driver that Michael Mills is and the speed that he has, what we're seeing from Preston is really impressing me.
It's great. It's really a great story to have his primary car burned down. Oh, he's a little bit wide there. And then come back, be leading this race, winning yesterday with Michael Lewis. This is great stuff.
It was 1.7 seconds there, but now down to 9/10 of a second.
Well, Mills has got the hammer down. Yeah, his quickest lap of the day, I think, is a 52.9 right there. You can smell it.
Yeah, down into turn 1, Sunset Bend once again, and it's getting late in the afternoon here, and it heads right into the west. The sun gets down low and starts just kissing the peaks here over in the Stansbury range that they're facing.
Dion a 53.1, so that's a little bit slower than Michael Mills. So the potential of Dion catching is running out in terms of his lap times, and the laps are dwindling down as well in terms of how many to go with just over 15 minutes on the clock.
Meanwhile, in the GTS division, Max Riddle continues to lead, but that last lap, Jason Alexandridis ran a lap that was over a second quicker than Max Riddle. Jason has just found it this weekend.
It's been a great performance. Really nice guy. Spent a bit of time with him at Mid-Ohio and had a good chat, and he's really enjoying racing. He's really starting to find his stride, find his comfort level with the race car, and the run he put together yesterday chasing his teammate was superb.
And boy, look at this. Now Preston Calvert in traffic. He's up behind Max Riddle, who is coming up hard astern on Chris Beaufait. Preston, nice read on that, ducks through, and he's going to get Riddle in between himself and Mills. And now Preston, nice run through traffic here, but look at Mills. He read that perfectly too, didn't get balked too much. Is he going to be able to get through? And Beaufait, nope. Now he just shallows it up a little bit, Cal. Nice job by Mills.
Preston, though.
Yeah.
I mean, he's used to running in GT Cup, which is the slower of the classes in our GT Championship, and he's used to having to make way for the faster cars coming through. For him to read traffic that well is really nice.
Yeah, doing a very, very nice job out there. Let's see what the margin is. That read on traffic may have saved him a little bit of time. Yeah, actually gave him a little bit. Gained a 10th back working traffic like that. So Mike Mills just not able to close up on that last lap. And, of course, Kuno Whitmer crawled out of that beautiful Mills Racing BMW Z4, Jeff.
Well, Kuno Whitmer, great opening stint for you. You kept it right there and had a tremendous pit stop.
Yeah, I said it yesterday. BMW and a racetrack go hand in hand. I mean, you can't ask for better. I mean, the balance on the car is really great. Mills Racing prepped an awesome car. We're out there just running really good laps. I mean, the tires came up to temps real quick, given the temperatures, where I think we're near 100 degrees out here. And then they settled in, and, if I would have pushed a little harder, I would have maybe burnt off the front tires. So I settled into a pace, because it's not a 30-minute race, it's a 1-hour race. So you got to hand over to Michael after. So, you got to be smart in these type of things. And, big thanks to BMW, put a good car out there with Mills Racing, because I think if we keep pressure on the Porsche ahead of us, then we could definitely get them.
Well, we said that they cut it close and had a good pit stop. They're off a little bit. It's 84.8 seconds. They're at 88 seconds.
Oh, just a huge slacker effort by that pro. That's amazingly close, their ability to do that and make that work. And the one thing there you saw the factory driver, capability. Said, I didn't want to burn that. We didn't want to change tires and upset the balance on the car, so I didn't push it.
Well, I think typically you would, but
yeah.
Running into the problem they ran yesterday when they did change that right front, they didn't want to go down that road again. So,
yes.
As Kuno said, it's not about what I'm doing at the 30-minute mark. It's what about Michael can do at the end of 60 minutes here.
And at this point now, Mills has caught.
He's wide.
Preston Calvert. Yeah,
He's
he
in
did
the
float a little
marbles
bit wide,
there.
didn't he?
Try to push it in there. Interesting to see if his tires will come back to him quickly.
Well, as the old saying goes, catching's one thing, getting around is the other, and we know that Porsche has some serious pace.
The clock here and their lap times is going to be tight, but I think they're going to get 7 more laps. Looks like they're going to come across maybe the same as yesterday, with like 20 to 30 seconds on the board without catching the checker. So we'll create an additional lap, which could be crucial for Michael Mills or Preston Calvert for that.
You know what, Van Molke is up the ante again, running a mid 152 or a little higher than that, but still has that margin down to under 15 seconds. He's running out of time, no question, but that speed is back, and if these guys were to catch some traffic or whatever, who knows at this point. Mills is close, looking to the apex here, going deep, and Calvert just shuts the door.
Michael came from a long way back there.
Yeah, he did.
But I think Preston certainly showed his intentions with that one, so I think Michael's going to have to be a little bit closer, otherwise there could be some contact, and the trouble is, if you're being the aggressor down on the inside and you tip someone around, that will probably draw a penalty. So he's got a good car, 10 minutes on the board, just be patient.
And, of course, this is Michael Lewis's GT category race car. Jeff, you a little bit nervous watching this battle?
Well, Michael Lewis, he's right here waiting for the interview, and he's looking up, looking at the monitors. You're on the edge here, but great run for you as well.
And a big spin by Mills.
Greg and Cal.
A big spin by Mills, Jeff. Mills, it got away from him coming through the attitudes as he was attacking on the back of Preston Calvert. This might be the gift that Lewis needed, and Dion is through. So, Jeff, right now, Lewis's grin's going to get a lot bigger, I would think.
Yeah, you said your grin's going to get a lot bigger now. It was a mistake there by Michael Mills, but tell us how that opening stint was for you.
Opening stint was excellent. Tried to make a huge gap for Preston Calvert here in this Discount Tire Curb Records and Circle Porsche of Long Beach Porsche 911 GT3R. Right now, Preston is doing an amazing job keeping that BMW at bay, and he's doing some great lap times. I'm just glancing over at that computer just to keep an eye on what he's doing, and we're just telling him to be calm, be cool in his apexes, and he's doing just that. So we'll see how he fares here, but some good racing here in SprintX.
And tell us about your emotions for that win there yesterday.
Wow, that was pretty incredible yesterday. Not thinking about it too much. We're thinking about this race, but very emotional win concerning what's happened for this Phoenix racing team.
We've had a few laps here this weekend as well.
Yeah, driving is always a great time. That's what we do here, and just clicking off lap time. So it's been so great to get double the laps than we normally do. But big shout out to Curb Records, Circle Porsche of Long Beach, and Discount Tire.
Well, huge development for this team there with that spin by Mills, Greg.
Oh, massive development for this team, and Michael Lewis knows exactly who to mention in those interviews, doesn't he?
I think it's more impressive than his driving, and his driving's great.
Here's another look at it, Cal.
There he is. He's just a little out of sync there. Tries to hang with it.
Almost saved it.
Yeah, but watch this. It takes him a few seconds to get going, and as we mentioned, Dion Van Malka was about 15 seconds back, and before Michael can get back on track and get some fire in the belly, Dion was through and grabs the second position.
Michael is going to be awfully gutted on this one. But, boy, I'll tell you, he was giving it a serious chase. But you know what? I think that, again, goes back. We have to talk a little bit about Preston Calvert. To be running a fast enough pace that a driver the level of Michael Mills spins trying to catch you, this might be the weekend that Preston Calvert, gets that knowledge, that confidence, Cal, that, geez, maybe I could really do this.
I know, and he was pumped up after yesterday, but if he can close the deal, that's a different story. That's a whole different level of a victory.
And it doesn't hurt that he's probably one of the nicest human beings you find anywhere, not just in a racing paddock. So what a special day for him and for Dion Van Molke. We just talked about, it doesn't look like he's going to be able to do better than third today. And then that quick spin by Mills and Molke able to slot through. So Walt Boland and that M1 GT team will be very pleased. Of course, this one started by Estella, but the team is Walt Boland's.
Okay, Dion Van Malka, last time across the stripe, 13 seconds behind. I believe we're going to get 5 more laps, Greg, so it's not over yet. Dion just got to keep digging. They've got to tell Preston, don't relax too much. We need you to run laps at least in the 54, low 54, high 53 second range to stem the tide from this man.
Yeah, and Van Molke now, he is going to have the bit between his teeth and see what he's able to do here.
Surprised he doesn't have a little bit more pace. Looking at his lap times, high 52s is the best I think I've seen. Best lap in that car was David Arcella, 51.38, obviously on much fresher tires. So again, really depends how David handled his stint. Kuno talked about saving the car. David was in a fierce battle with James Sofronis, maybe used the tires up a little bit more to get in front, and it hasn't given Dion a lot to fight with here.
Yeah, what was it you said about this dual driver scenario? Sometime this season, I remember you said it doesn't help much if you get out of the car and hand a molten heap over to your co-driver. And Estella certainly didn't do that, but when you're in a pitched battle like you're talking about, you just work those tires a little bit too hard. Eventually, don't they get to a point where you just can't bring them back?
Oh, absolutely. And he can't afford to cool off. Do you know what I mean? He's got to keep pushing and trying to raise that gap. He'll be getting that information in terms of lap data on the dash for the lap times, but also the gap will be given to him by his team. So he realized, I've got to keep pushing with time running out. Just over 6 minutes on the board.
Brent Holden in that 4th spot, and James Burke had pitted and is in 5th, and now, of course, a number of laps down in GTS. Max Riddle continues to lead. Jason Alexandrides sits 2nd. And right now, that margin has slowly and even slower been shrinking for the simple reason that the times just haven't quite been working at it here with Harry Gottsacker sitting in 3rd. But Max Riddle doing a nice job out there. Chris Wilson got the start. It looked like it took a while for that car to come alive.
Well, Chris Wilson, you have had some problems plagued all weekend. The car took a little while to come alive, but you put the kid in before the pro.
Yeah, well, obviously the kid is way better than the pro, so this is all good. Max is doing an awesome job. Obviously, temperatures are real hot. Car doesn't really like this. It's an Aston. It's from England. It really doesn't like this hot weather stuff. So, but, 5 minutes to go. Hopefully Max will bring it home for another win, and we'll keep this thing going.
And tell us about your stint starting off in that race.
Yeah, I mean, I was just kind of pacing myself, trying to keep the tires under the car, bring a good car back to Max so he could finish it off. Unfortunately, our team car had a problem, had a flat tire. Obviously, that helped us. We never like to see any problems with any car. You want to, fight them straight up. But still, you never know what's going to happen.
Well, still looking for a 1-2 finish for TRG and Aston Martin Racing.
Yeah, well, they're well placed for it. He brings up a good point because the last thing you want is to be sweating when you're having tea and crumpets. Really.
Absolutely, and your cucumber sandwiches and your Pims. We have a lot of 30-degree days in England. The trouble is it's Fahrenheit and it's centigrade here.
Exactly right. And again, Riddle just doing a nice job here. They talked about that problem for the team car, the 09. Derek DeBoer had been absolutely spectacular, but then ended up with that cut tire. Harry Gottsacker, he's been able to run laps here. I've been watching this, and he's closing in on Alexandrides. I don't know that he's got enough time to really get there unless he finds something. And we also just got word from the pits that they said a question or a problem that Max Riddle might be dealing with in this heat is that one thing that didn't get hooked up in the driver change was the cool suit, Cal.
Yeah, well, that's going to be a big factor here, even down at the last 5 minutes. But we saw Chris Wilson early in that run down the middle of the straightaway, so I thought he was encountering some kind of cooling issues with the engine, and he's very much a pro. He'll be totally on top of that, not wanting to damage it. And handicap the later progress for Max Riddle. But Preston Calvert, there he is. There's the gap. Just under 9 seconds last time across the stripe.
I think a little bit of that.
Yeah, there's going to be this lap plus 2 more. So if he keeps doing that 2 to 3 second range, it's going to be awfully tight at the end of the day. We can't afford, like I said, Preston needs to run low 54s, high 53s. He just ran a low 55.
Right.
And then there's the head game, when he suddenly can see that Audi in his rearview mirror. When he's going through one of these corners, you can look across as you're exiting and you see the other car coming in. There's some really keen reference points, particularly out of the hairpin. You can see where your chaser is, whether he's catching or not.
And Calvert's been able to run in that high 53 range on occasion here, so you wonder if he's just electing to back off. I noticed a couple of corners right before we went to this shot of Dion van Molke that Preston was running with a lot of room between the exit curbs and his car, so you just wonder if he's backed it off, or maybe he's sensing a problem, with one of those tires, or he's run them off.
Well, that team is very experienced. Joe Aquilani runs a great group there. And he will have told him a lap time. He would have told him a lap time to hit, which will bring it home. He'll know what Dion's potential is. There'll be 2 laps to go. So it'll be this lap, and then we'll see the white flag.
And that was a 55.2. Yeah. What does Van Molke do this time through?
Well, 2.5 seconds. So if he does 2 more laps with the 2.5 second delta, he's going to win this thing by about 1.5 seconds. So maybe they have told him that number. Just do low 52s, you're good. But that doesn't make up for any sort of bobble, doesn't give you any cushion or any margin if anything goes wrong with traffic or something like that.
Well, that's it. What does he have in front of him in terms of any of this GTS traffic? And right now, that's a lot of clear track we're looking at here as he heads into the Black Rock hairpin.
Basically setting it up. If Preston runs exactly the same lap times as he's done on the last 2 or 3 laps, Dion does the same. Preston should win this by about 1 second, but it's going to be tight.
Yeah. Van Molke, though, but there's the other side of it. You were talking about Preston in the mind game, seeing him in the mirror, but Van Molke now can see him growing ever bigger in the windscreen, and we'll see what Dion can find. His last lap was a 52.7, and we've seen that car run a low 51.
I think that's Dion's fastest lap, possibly at 52.7, so he's obviously given it his all. Preston there a little bit cleaner through there, where he's really eating the curb and trying to charge when Michael Mills was chasing him. So he's definitely being cool here, hitting his marks, not trying to make any mistakes. Don't throw it away, certainly, but don't give up so much in terms of lap time that you're going to allow Dion to catch you on the last lap.
Here we go into clubhouse. Here, grab a little bit of throttle now, setting up for wind up. There's a look at it. Wind up and now into release. Bank turn here.
There you see the gap between the 2 leaders. There's the margin as Preston now hits the stripe. And again, if he can do just a low 55 and continue to do it as we see the white flag, that should be good. 54.2.
Nice.
He has responded. That is great stuff by Preston Calvert. That should be enough, barring any mistakes on this last lap.
52.8 by Van Molke. The margin almost exactly 5 seconds with 1 lap to go. And Michael Mills still sitting in 3rd, but a number of seconds back here. But he's just a little over 11 seconds off of Dion Van Molke for Mike Mills. There you see him in the background, so he's not giving up on it. He ran a pretty decent lap, too. Riddle has a 28-second margin over Alexandrides, But, boy, Harry Gottsacker has trimmed that margin down here, Cal. He just ran a lap 2 seconds quicker than Alexandridis, but he's running out of time.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to catch him. And I'll tell you what, if you thought it was an emotional victory here yesterday for Michael Lewis and Preston Calvert, this is going to be unbelievable.
Well, Michael Lewis, a consummate race car driver at the pro level, brought it home today. You have got a true gentleman driver, and I mean it in the two best senses of the word here. If he holds on and makes this one happen, I think that whole pit lane could erupt in tears in that Cruz paddock.
Just keep it clean. Hit your marks. Don't get over those curbs. Don't unsettle the car too much.
Gentle on the throttle.
The way he dealt with traffic, Greg, was superb.
It was.
Just a standout performance for Preston Calvert. Again, we talk about the disappointment. Here's Michael Lewis. Here's Joe Aquilani, screen right.
Yeah, we talked about Jason Alexandridis having maybe the breakout drive yesterday. I think Preston Calvert has responded in kind. Here we go into release for the last time, and talk about a release for this team and some relief for that pit right now. Onto the front straight he comes, a sweep. What a story by Calvert Dynamics here in rounds 3 and 4 now of the SprintX Championship. Dion von Moltke trimming that margin down at the end. Actually, Calvert ran a lap quicker than von Moltke. What a tremendous story. Look at the celebrations down there by this crew. Max Riddle is going to hold on, barring any unforeseen last-minute catastrophe over Jason Alexandridis, but another 1-2 for the TRG team. And look at the celebrations in that pit for Calvert Dynamics, Cal, and here comes Riddle.
And this has been a hot ride, literally, for Max Riddle. His cool suit was broken. It's a hot day in the 90-degree range, mid-90s, nearly 100 here this afternoon.
Through the exit of Tuella turn, and for Riddle, 3 corners and a checkered flag. And this time, though, the 1-2 finish by the Racers Group will be a flip-flop from what we saw yesterday.
It'll still be their 4th on the year and the
Absolutely.
3rd for this group of Max Riddle and Chris Wilson.
Here he comes once again through that final turn onto the front straight, and the checkered flag awaits. The Racers Group, Adobe Road Winery, LaSalle Solutions, Aston Martin comes through and brings it home. And even Derek DeBoer is cheering that one. They are truly a team with those 2 cars here. They do so much as one unit here. So impressive stuff. Alexandridis in his second, and Harry Gottsacker got down to within 4 seconds. We'll be right back to Utah. So, tell you what, Harry Gottsacker gave that a great run right at the end there. Kept running laps that were really, really on pace. 1.5 to 2 seconds a lap quicker, and just came up probably, 2 laps, maybe 3 short.
Yeah, certainly with the margin there. Just over 3 seconds it was at the line between Alexandridis and Gottsacker. So, yeah, you're right, Greg. A couple of laps that could have been a different story.
And Preston Calvert in the last lap, running a lap quicker by 1/10 than Dion von Moltke, just to make sure that he kept that margin in place. This is just going to be an amazing celebration down there as Preston pulls it down, and Jeff Lepper will be waiting for him here. Von Moltke second, Mills third, and then Brent Holden and James Burke. Welcome back to Utah Motorsports Campus, where the 4th round of SprintX has come to a conclusion. Another great story unfolding involving this team, this driver, and the guy who started the car, Preston Calvert, crawling out, and Jeff Lepper is waiting for him. As soon as Preston gets that helmet up, we will wait for him. But an absolutely remarkable run by Preston here to preserve this win. And I'll tell you what, obviously, Lewis had opened up that huge margin, had a little hiccup on that pit stop, Cal, lost some room. That really put the pressure on Preston Calvert, and that guy responded.
Oh, I did. It was a perfect performance by that team, other than maybe that pit stop, because I'm not sure if it was the driver change or whatever, but certainly cost him around 10 seconds.
And he's out, and he's smiling. Jeff Lepper, that's a happy camper.
It sure is. And Preston Calvert, what a feeling for you and this team. Everything you've had to gone through here this weekend to be able to cross that finish line in your car with your team, Calvert Dynamics.
Unbelievable feeling. Michael gave me the car with a very large lead due to his unbelievable driving ability, and we made a decent exchange, not a great one, and I managed to bring it home. There was a spin behind me that helped me, but he just had to keep it going. The tires are really going away on this hot track, so it was a real challenge. I want to thank Phoenix Performance. I want to thank my wife, Meg Guerin Calvert, and definitely want to thank all of the sponsors that we have for Michael's car.
And you're driving there at the end to maintain that lap and maintain those paces. Were they talking to you the whole way through?
Well, they were giving me a little encouragement along the way. They were trying to help make sure that I knew that I needed to keep my pace up. But I knew that he wasn't far behind me, so I needed to keep going.
Well, they say the first win's the hardest. Now Preston Calvert, two-time winner.
Yeah, how fantastic is that? And don't worry, Preston, you didn't get the sponsors on the car mentioned by name, but Michael did it twice for you, so they got that covered. Here are the results. Preston Calvert and Michael Lewis, and again, what a great story. Dion Van Molke, boy, he was hustling it after Ostella gave him a good ride. And Michael Mills, who knows but for that spin.
Yeah, it was going to be tight. I mean, he was definitely digging deep there. Preston was hanging tough. You would think that Mills may have just nipped him at the end, but it's not over till it's over. He made that little mistake, cost him dearly. Another podium run, though, will be big points for him. He should continue to lead the Sportsman Challenge.
I don't think there's any question of that. Boy, did they execute pit stops, though, with that Mills Racing team.
Perfect.
That was superb, wasn't it?
It really was. It's what it's all about. And I tell you, when it gets a bit more competitive with more cars in this championship, that's going to make the difference right there.
And, of course, we also have the other category running. By the way, I just love that shot with the flags and that mountain. But let's get back down to Jeff with our winners in GTS.
Well, Chris Wilson, your guys' third win here with Max Riddle and Max, the cool suit not hooked up. What a drive.
Yeah, it was pretty hot out there, but I just stayed in it, and one of the key things to endurance racing is to never give up, and Chris and I didn't give up today. We didn't have the fastest car, but we didn't give up, and you see it paid off, and we got this win, and I couldn't be happier. I have to thank the guys at TRG, Aston Martin Racing, Kevin Buckler, my dad Dave, Chris, and my wife Megan.
Well, Chris Wilson, you've coached him along, and to see this has got to be great for you as well.
Yeah, like we talked about before, teaching him, he's better than me. Now he can teach me a few things. It's all good.
So we just got to work on the cool suit hookup, and other than that, we're okay.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, he's just, as he said, just stuck with it, Cal, and was able to bring that home over Alexandrinas, and of course Harry Gottsacker putting in a good run at the end too to close it up. Just not quite close enough. And let's take a look at the results in the GTS category. And there you see again a sweep of the front two spots by the Racers group, different than it was yesterday. Just a flip of those cars, and great to see that Performance Motorsports group Ginetta running this time.
It was, and without the snafu in the pit stop, they could have been a real factor, not only for a better spot, but actually a victory here today. So great job by everyone in the field.
And frustrations, of course, for the Sin R1 team in Racers Edge, just having that overheating issue. And Chris Beaufait got out, then had to come back in the pits. It was a tough issue, obviously, so a bit of a problem. So with that, we're going to wrap up our coverage here on our Pirelli World Challenge global web feed. It has been a phenomenal weekend here at the Pirelli World Challenge Grand Prix at Utah Motorsports Campus, presented by EnergySolutions. Fabulous weather, exceptional racing, a very busy schedule, and it has been a pleasure to be able to bring it all to you here. Thank you so much. For Calvin and for Jeff down at Pit Lane, I'm Greg Creamer. Thanks for joining us, and look forward to having you tune back in come Sonoma.